Welcome to Politics and Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning, Texas. Good morning, United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world. How are all my peeps doing? I trust everybody is doing fine. You know why? I was just listening to a text from a voice text from one of my buddies, and he said, "It's the weekend, baby." Vamos a comenzar, folks. We are going to have a great day for you. Welcome, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. She's the first person in the chat this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. But before we get started, we pass it to our resident genius in the studio on Caroline. Good morning, KPFT 90.1 FM. Houston, how art thou doing?
How's it going, Egberto?
All is going fine, my friend. Are you flying solo today?
Yes. Howard's in Corpus Christi doing some work.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got it going on, my brother. What's the word of the day?
Well, the word of the day is every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future.
I love that. Wow, man. You know, if you heard that pause, it was because we normally hear a little longer thing from Jack, but always prescient as it was what he said. Hey, Jack, great word of the day. Thank you so kindly for being here. Thank you so kindly for holding the fort down.
Yeah, that's that was sent to me by my friend Brett. So,
well, Brett,
I never dreamed I'd be 65 and be getting affirmations from other men. It's really, you know, I can dig the messages that he sends me. It's pretty cool.
I hear you, my man. I hear you. Anyway, folks, I trust that you're having a good start of your day, whether you're driving in your car, whether you're wherever you are. Look, you know, I went to bed last night sort of heavy-hearted because I read, reading the news and all of that. And I kept reading things about, can we all really turn things around? Can we really make the world a fair world? And the truth of the matter is, I keep coming back to the same answer, and that is, yes, we can. And I remember during the environment days, we had the yes, we can. And everybody was nice and happy that, it looked like a change was coming and things were just getting better. And then, I sat there and I picked up the New York Times online, of course, and there was this article about the NHS. And I'm looking for it. I didn't, silly me, didn't get it all ready for you. But the article pointed out that, first of all, there was a time when almost bar none, the British National Healthcare Service, known as NHS, was the most well-known system where people paid zero. Healthcare was considered a right. And right now, it is going through, as we would say in Panama, páramo. It's going through hell. And there's a short video. I want any of you who get a chance, I want to put the link to the article inside of the chat. And for those of you in the chat, you can go look for the article. I'll post the article along with the newsletter at politicsandright.com/newsletter as well. But I want to say something about it. Buenos días, Gerardo López. Saludos. Good morning, Gerardo. ¿Cómo estás, hermano mío? Anyway, the issue is there was a time right after World War II, this great institution was founded. And if you got sick, you just went ahead and showed your card, you go get some health care, whether you needed an operation, medicine, whatever you needed, it was taken care of. It was paid for out of the general funds. And it worked. And it worked for decades. But there is something that most Americans don't realize. We have gotten indoctrination for decades that try to give us the feeling, the ability that only, or not only, that it is the private sector that can do things better than anything else. There's an interesting caveat here that I always try to tell people. The private sector is comprised of shareholders who, create the companies, and if it's a corporation, executives who run corporations, and all the employees of that corporation who actually do the work. A public system is we the people, the government, who hires executives who then hire a bunch of people to do the work. So we have government executives, or meaning managers and employees for the government. We have shareholders. We have executives and the same employees who do the work. The theory that you have been told that is more efficient than anything else since apple pie is that if you have the model that says shareholder, corporation, employee, if that model runs healthcare, that somehow it can be more efficient than the model that says government, executives, meaning managers, shareholders. I want to show the distinct difference here. The one-to-one correspondent is the following. The workers are identical, right? If you're a doctor, whether you work for the government or you work for the private sector, you're a doctor, you have to have the same training. So employees, same thing, right? There's a slight difference. When it comes to employees at that level, you will find that the government employees have more protection than the private sector employees who generally gets less protection. They fight for unions to get better. The executives in the private sector generally get more money. They're paid on bonuses as well. If they're able to create more profits, they get more bonuses. The executives in the government, they make a salary. Then we have the government, of course. All they do is collect taxes so that they can pay the managers and the employees to provide a service. In the case of shareholders, they do absolutely nothing but sit back, put their money in a pool, and wait for the profits to come in. And in the case of healthcare, those profits are equivalent to services not rendered to the people, right? Services not rendered, excess not. That's what it turns out to be. You are made to believe that model with the shareholders skimming monies for themselves can somehow be more efficient than that model that just has the government, the managers, and the employees. And why is that? They say because it's competition. All right. And the truth of the matter is, there's some truth to that. If I have Pizza Shop 1, Pizza Shop 2, Pizza Shop 3, Pizza Shop 4, Pizza Shop 5, and all of us sell pepperoni pizza, we have to do something special so that Pizza Shop, that you will shop instead of at Pizza Shop 4, you shop at Pizza Shop 2, right? So usually what happens is there are coupons, there are price reductions and all that sort of stuff to entice you to go to that pizza place. So that kind of works in the private sector. Just having one government with one pizza shop, a monolithic pizza shop, it's kind of sick, crazy. It's kind of like, you don't get that variety, right? But there are basically not many ways to fix a broken leg, or if your leg is broken, you want that broken leg fixed, and you don't have any time to go shop around or anything of that nature, right? So before I go further into this discussion, I want to say that every economy should be perfectly bifurcated. In other words, those services that belong into areas where people have choices, competition reigns. But there are areas where people don't have choices. And in those areas, that is where collectively we, the people, should reign, where there shouldn't be any profit motive that generates what kind of care you would get. Going back to the story at the New York Times, the NHS is in bad shape right now. And it is in bad shape because, believe it or not, the private sector got involved. It got that way because, like what Republicans do in the United States, they very much attempt to make government as bad as possible. Try to make it not work so that they can say, well, you see, government doesn't work, so we must transfer this to the private sector. To which I ask you, inherently, what would make the private sector better in healthcare than the government sector? What differences are there? The only difference in the way things work again is the shareholder versus government. A shareholder that does absolutely nothing, and government. So when the NHS began to fail, and I want you to go to the link that I provided in the chat. I'll put it in the newsletter later on. I didn't put it in last night, but I'll add it to the newsletter tonight, and you can find the newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. That link has a great dissertation, and it has a video within that New York Times article that explain how the private sector, along with a corrupt government leadership, can destroy something that worked for everybody in order then for those parasites who brought it down to instead collect excesses from the population at large. People, we have to get smart. There are a group of people that are not all that smart. They're no smarter than you and me. What they are is built into their psyche is thievery. And they do it in an antiseptic manner, in a manner that's legal, in a manner that actually increases their reputation. It's a world that is turned upside down. Johnny, I'm coming to you in a minute. It's a world that is turned upside down. We reward that person who can cut cost on the backs of people to make profit. You doubt that? You doubt that? This is the start of the show that was not supposed to be the start of the show, but just because I read that New York Times article, I sort of wanted to put a little nodule in your brain and ask you, first of all, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm absolutely clear in the way I'm making my statements, and I say, hey guys, give me a call at 713-526-5738 and tell me if you followed the direction of the discourse, if you have a critique, if you have a comment of what I just stated. But I started all of this before I even started the show. But today's show, the title of the show today is Ryan Grimm on the Squad and AIPAC, the proof that corporate profiteering caused inflation. Ryan Grim embarrassed Ted Cruz. He visited with Politics Done Right to discuss Cruz, the Squad, and AIPAC, and more. Here is the proof that inflation was caused by obscene corporate profits. I'm going to start the show after my initial soliloquy with the story on inflation and who caused it that was printed by a global institute yesterday or sometime this week. That's going to be the first thing that we talk about. But I want folks to understand the following. We must take control, first of all, of our own minds, because it is being used against us from the day we were born to the day we die. We're indoctrinated to enrich a few. I repeat, from the day we were born to the day we die, we've been indoctrinated to enrich a few, to be servants of the few. Slavery never ended. It just changed forms. It just changed forms. And whereas we could determine who and what were slaves, now it's a crap. Well, no, it's not a crapshoot. Most of us are. All right, before I continue with the program, I want to go to Johnny. Come on in, Johnny.
I'm really liking Magic Jack's word of the day. He's becoming really zen lately. Really liking it.
That's our Jack. That's our Jack. From the time we sat down and had the burrito, and I spent quite a bit of time with Brother Jack, and just listening to his insight, I'm like, brother, you got to tell us something every morning, man. You have got to tell us something every morning. And thankfully, he always has something to tell us. But continue, my brother Johnny.
Well, here's a thought of the day. Actually, it's forever when you think about it. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Republicans do. And guess which Republican Party politician I told that to the other day?
I bet it's John Cornyn.
All of them.
Right?
All of them. Every single one I could get a hold of.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Johnny. You were in the house making those calls. Good for you, Johnny. Good for you, Johnny. Okay, anything else, Johnny, before I start with the first topic?
Wait a minute, one last thing.
Yes.
Your mention of the way capitalism works right now, unfettered, underregulated, mercenary-style form of capitalism and GOP austerity.
Yes.
You know the biggest thing about that I don't like?
What?
Is the deceptive way the Republicans put forth these public-private partnerships. Instead of paying as we go, as we should. That's ironic because that's what they say all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what do they do when it comes to the TARP under Barack Obama or the current thing that Bob Biden has, the Inflation Reduction Plan? What is the thing that they do? Instead of us paying for it up front with money from the Treasury that we could get by taxing the ultra-wealthy, we borrow money from the ultra-wealthy and then pay back to them with interest our own money.
Oh yeah, it's fraud. It's the payment that government makes to the private sector to prevent the plutocrats from further indoctrinating the population against we the people. It's the biggest racket, but it is hard to explain because it's tied into so many things that people think are cultural. And that's, let me tell you, one of the things that I hope to accomplish with Politics Done Right, as well as a lot of other independent journalists out there, is to try to get people not to, just listen to us blankly, but try to just ask one important question: why? And let me give the biggest why. And, I'm because healthcare servicing has affected my family profoundly. Having a daughter with 2 strokes, having a wife with lupus from day one. There are just a lot of things. I am the only one, I think, in this house that doesn't go to doctors, and mostly maybe because it's fear of what it's going to cost. It's fear that if they find something later on, insurance values are. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's wrong, but I am very much ingrained in healthcare. I've always had insurance. Have always fought with them. But the one question I always have here is why have we, as an intelligent society, ever come to the belief that having a third party pay a medical bill can be more efficient than having one party, your government, pay that bill? How were we ever able to be convinced that putting a 30% premium on what it costs to pay for healthcare can somehow be more efficient? That thought process is, when we talk about indoctrination, that has been done masterfully for the last several decades, and that we have a hard time getting through to the American people by being able to say, look, the NHS is collapsing in England right now. The National Healthcare Service, what all English people used to get all their healthcare, free medical care, now it's conflated in the United States. As you see what happens when government takes over your healthcare, which is really a complete farce. A complete farce. But again, I digress. One of the goals of politics done right is to ask people to constantly ask why. And for everything that we have been indoctrinated into, ask why. Ask why do we think toll roads or private toll roads are better than public toll roads? There are so many things. The state of Texas went on a toll road building bonanza where foreign companies own some of our roads, and they get right of ways all over. Foreign companies own our roads, and we pay tolls to them. Tolls are nothing but taxes. Why not be honest, charge a tax, and build a damn road? It's all a fraud. But Johnny, thank you for calling, my brother. We'll talk later.
One final thought, if I may. Remember when Ronald Reagan said, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help"? He said that as a derogatory. Here's my retort to Ronnie. How about this instead? Universal progressive tax code like the 1950s, but with no loopholes for the ultra wealthy. That's the solid financial base we need to start with. Otherwise, all these mayors can say all these things they want across the country, and they will not be able to do anything. They will be powerless.
Thank you very much, Johnny. You're a good man. Thank you, Johnny. Have a great day. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Let's go to Roby. Come on in, Roby.
Good morning, Alberto. How are you today? My name is Robbie.
Yeah, talk to me, Robbie.
You know who Albert Einstein is?
Of course I know who Albert Einstein is. E is equal to MC squared, of course. Theory of relativity.
Okay. So you know who Jack Einstein is and Alberto Einstein is, right?
I misunderstood you. Repeat, please.
Okay. Jack Einstein and Howard Einstein run the control room in Utah. So you're Alberto Einstein.
Oh.
You're just like Albert Einstein, but a little different. You're smart like you, but you're different because he got a white mustache and white hair and you don't.
All right, Robbie. Look, I appreciate the kudos, my brother. I really do appreciate the kudos. You keep listening, you keep telling folks about the show, and make sure that we all together learn together and grow together. All right, brother?
Because we're going to do that. Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good one.
Great. All right, brother. I appreciate you, Robbie. All right, folks. Listen. All right. The first topic that I want to cover is an article in Common Dreams, and you guys know one of the reasons I like Common Dreams is they sort of do on paper on their website what we do on our blogs and on radio. They take the news that's out there and present it into a form that I don't want to say give it a progressive slant, but give it the correct slant. When I say slant, not read through the lens of an indoctrinative status. But here we go. The title of their article was "Study Shows Corporate Profiteering Amplified Global Inflation." As you guys recall, I spoke about several months ago Katie Porter. Katie Porter found a study that proved that remember, our inflation rate had gone up to 9 point something percent. And she found out, and the calculations they did proved that half of that inflation was caused by corporate greed. In other words, corporations saw, hey, it costs us a little bit more to get this stuff because of the supply chain issues and all of that, but we can sock it to the people. We can raise prices even higher and just say, hey guys, it's inflation. And who always gets blamed for inflation? The government, the government, the government. And so that kind of insulated them from getting any blame. But in reality, they were to be blamed. I brought on Dr. Richard Wolff, economist Richard Wolff, who pointed out the fact that 3% of the American population are the employer class. And that employer class is the only one who has this stuff called pricing power. They determine whether prices go up or go down. They can say today or tomorrow that loaf of bread is not going to be $2 anymore. That loaf of bread is going to be $1.50. And my cost is maybe $1. I'll charge $1. They determine what that cost is going to be. So anytime you see a price rise, the first person that should be blamed is that person who raised the prices, not some indirection towards the government. Now, before I continue with the article, I want to remind you of something that we've spoken about before. I've said that whereas Katie Porter proved that half of inflation was caused by the private sector just profiteering, meaning increasing the prices more so than their own cost, it's a bit, I consider it 100% their fault. And let me explain. The pandemic, the actual result of the pandemic, or I should say, the pandemic severity was directly caused by our corporate structure, restraining what a good government would do. And we had that right here in the United States when President Trump ignored all that we could see happening down the road. I want everybody to remember how Obama handled, I think it was Ebola, an Ebola strain that started to bear fruit. They went ahead and they threw everything at its source. Maybe you would say China would not have allowed us to go involved, but I tell you what, we could have thrown everything at the sources that we controlled to prevent what occurred in this spread. We could have been all over the world. We had the power to do it. We didn't do it because. Now, again, we also had the way the drug companies operated with our technology that was rightfully the technology of the American people. We had them take advantage of us all to pay for these drugs. The supply chain problem that caused many of the prices to go up because of shortages was created by these corporations with their just-in-time inventory methodology, which meant as the ship are going across the sea, just as that ship reaches shore and that container goes on that truck or that train to go towards the factory, at that point, that inventory is needed. They can build the product. But the supply chain, from the time it's manufactured in China to the time it gets on the ship, to the time it gets to our shores, to the time it gets to the factory, all of that to make a profit. And by the way, it's a one-time profit gain these clowns made. That supply chain issue, right? That meant the first time a pandemic, or even not even a pandemic, an epidemic in any country that we get our source material from, it means there's a supply chain disruption. And because these geniuses that call themselves executives that we like to revere, they're generally not all that smart, let me just tell you first of all, but that we just love to revere. They decided that, oh, things are going to work all the time. There won't be hurricanes, there won't be pandemics, there won't be earthquakes, there won't be any of these things. So we can have a supply chain with just-in-time inventory. Just-in-time inventory is a ridiculous, irresponsible act. And you have all these economists that help some of these capitalists talk about this great just-in-time inventory to maximize profit. And it's always maximizing profit for the few shareholders who have maximum shares at the expense of you and me. And then we are learned to speak of, when I speak in this form, and that somehow I want to turn this country into a communist country. Far from that. I want a free enterprise system that actually works for all of us. That works for all of us. And the thing about it is, it just takes us asking the question, why? Why did we adapt just-in-time inventory? Why did we do we accept insurance companies that pay a bill at a premium? Why do we make that mother who is going to work every day at the whim of the oil companies? If gas prices get too high, she just can't eat. She just can't buy what's necessary for her kids. Why? Why can't we have an equitable system that says if you work every day, if you go out and you're productive for society every day, you deserve to be able to live every day? Those are questions that real progressives, not far progressives, real progressive ask. Those are the questions that, when answered, gives us the right politicians that create a society that works. And it's possible. Absent the greed, absent us falling for the indoctrinative state. But we have to first have that value mindset. We have to first realize that we have it between those two ears. Let's use those brains that were God-given, or whatever you believe in, given. All right, so let's go to the article. It goes as follows. A pair of London-based think tanks released research Thursday showing that corporate profits contributed substantially to the high inflation that the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, and other major nations experienced amid recent global shocks, including the coronavirus pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The new report by the Institute for Policy Research and Commonwealth argues that while corporate profiteering was not the sole driver of inflation, the market dominance of a few powerful companies amplified economy-wide price increases. And they show you some great charts in the article. Examining the profits of major firms listed on the stock market of 5 countries, the analysis shows that many large corporations were able to keep their margins stable or even boost them, as in the case of major oil and gas companies like ExxonMobil during the pandemic-related turmoil and global energy market disruption caused by Russia's attack on Ukraine. I remember I was in Washington, D.C., taking care of my daughter during the pandemic when she got that second stroke, and taking pictures at Costco on a weekly basis to show the increase in prices. And my question constantly was, how can there be increases in prices as Saudi Arabia was talking about cutting 2 million barrels of oil a day to keep prices up? Again, why? Use our minds. It was never because of the pandemic. It was never because of the Ukraine war. It was never because of any of that, because we have consistently, over the last decade, have a glut in oil. Even if not realized, we've had a glut in oil. Now the United States is the number 1 producer of oil, above Russia, above Saudi Arabia, above all of these countries. And prices are high. Why? Ask the question, why? Who's in control? And it's because we have not decided as a society that we won't allow them to charge us. And right away, a lot of this oil is drilled on public land. A lot of this oil is drilled on private land where the private owner doesn't get any more royalties when the prices are high or when the prices are low. Why? Why? It's a simple question. Why? That we should internalize. We should ask the question and not just believe what we're hearing on TV. Whether it's a MSNBC, ABS, CBS, I don't care, Fox News, whatever. Anything governed by the corporate sector for you to get your news from, remember where that slant has to come. And by the way, here at Politics Done Right, we are governed by whom again? Oh, the people. The people are who fund us. Oh, so who are we biased towards? The people, which means we are biased towards the truth. Continuing. The new report by the Institute of Public Policy, I read that one already. The researchers estimated that the profits of major corporations, bolstered by a relatively small number of companies, were at least 30% higher at the end of last year than they were at the end of 2019 prior to the coronavirus crisis. Think about that. If you have a 30% higher profit margin, how does that translate into the increased prices of the products you're buying? It's much more than 30%. I want you guys again, why? Think. As corporate executives and rich shareholders reap the benefits of rising profits, ordinary people around the world suffered consequences of soaring fuel, food, and housing costs. And you know what? A lot of that one paragraph illustrates that a lot of your fellow Americans either got sick, got poorer, or died because of actions by the private sector corporations during a pandemic. Why? Think. Where's the humanity? Where's the morality? Our analysis of companies suggests many large firms beyond just the commodity sectors are using their power to preserve their profit margin, said Chris Hayes, chief economist at Commonwealth and a co-author of the new report. This pushes the shocks downstream to workers, consumers, and labor-intensive industries that are less able to absorb them. The new report, which adds to the growing body of research on the role of corporate profits in driving inflation, offers several possible explanations for the coinciding rise of consumer prices and profits, which we've already explained, which I've already explained many times in many articles. But let me just say a little personal story. By the way, I owned a software company for the longest time that I gave up to do political activism because, again, it bore on me so many things that I saw. By the way, I believe in private sector. I believe in private companies. I believe in all of that. But I believe that we also have to be measured in what we do. I wrote software. I wrote the software, designed the software, debugged the software, wrote the books for the software. I did everything, not like the shareholder that does nothing and collects money by just investing their money. I did it all to write this software. And one of my vendors, one of my clients was Boeing. And this was used to check tests. I think it was 777 or 787. Can't remember which modules they used my communication software for as the transport for their test platform. But anyway, it turned out that when it was time to license the software, I charge a humongous price to license the software. I won't even say it here, right? And I always felt that sense of guilt. I'm like, damn. By the way, it was the only one on the market that could do what it does. And if you follow the standard capitalist methodology, what I did, there was absolutely nothing wrong. What I did with charging for that particular piece of software, for them to license that software. But I remember when they came for I think it was when they came for re-up for the license. I don't remember exactly all that happened. But when it came time for that, and the folks, I could have charged just about anything, And I remember sitting down that night and saying, you know what? It's so easy. I just have to call a number and these guys pay. Just call a number and these guys pay. And then it kept on hitting me, and I'm like, well, it's not their money. It's not the money of the execs who are making the deal. The engineer goes and he say, I need this software. They go ahead and they procure it, and they go ahead and they get the software. And then it came to me immediately. I'm like, these guys at the top, those with pricing power, have all the power. And ultimately, I am charging the person at the lowest end of the bargain, that traveler, that person who is buying a ticket to go see grandma, ultimately pays the price. And that's where some sort of personal morality must come in as we charge prices, because no matter what we charge, it has an effect somewhere down the road. And each of us as individuals, whether we're executives or otherwise, have to pay that price, or has to pay that moral price with what we do on the charging level, whether it is to profit ourselves or also the corporation or the shareholder. I'm going to continue with the article, but let me go to Diana first. Come on in, Diana. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, good morning. I'm calling from Spring Branch in Houston, the Houston area.
Thank you thank you and welcome, Spring Branch.
I'm calling because I know we've talked a lot about HISD and what's going on, but in Spring Branch, there's a $35 million budget shortfall, even though the district has a rainy day fund. But because of the state's reluctance to adequately fund students, we're now facing a proposed 5 school closures in Spring Branch, and they're all in vulnerable North Side communities. If you're familiar with Spring Branch, it's divided by the freeway in the haves and the have-nots. So there's a big vote at this next Spring Branch board meeting on Monday, December 11th at 6 p.m. And it's time to show up for public education for kids, and the meeting's at 6 p.m. But if you want to speak, you have to arrive a little sooner at 9016 Westview at the Spring Branch Education Building. So it's really devastating to see our community carrying the brunt of these cuts in a way that's horrifically unfair.
And these are cuts that don't really even have to be, as Spring Branch is not. It actually has quite a bit of industry in there as well. I mean, and by the way, you're right. There's a huge rainy day fund at the state level as well. Were you talking about that rainy day school fund at the state level?
There's both at the state level and at the district level. They have funds set aside for an emergency. And, I understand that they don't know when the student allotment will be fixed and they will have adequate funds. But it just seems unjust to target these North Side schools where maybe they don't think that there will be opposition that's organized to these proposals. The board is controlled by MAGA extremists. And so this is kind of the end game for them to be able to make these decisions. So it's really difficult to see our community be victimized like this.
That is very sad. I mean, I'm going to cut this out, this discussion that we have here, and cut this out, and also put it as much as I can on our other local networks, my friend. But tell us again about the meeting. What are they going to be voting for? What do these people need to be prepared for to talk about when they go to the meeting in Spring Branch?
So they're facing 5 school closures, the ending of a Sky partnership, and I'm generally not a pro-charter person. I'm a huge supporter of public schools, but these families have seen access to success for their children through this partnership, and it seems short-sighted to remove these opportunities for Northside families. So that is at Northbrook High School and Northbrook Middle School, and at Landrum Middle School, those Met Sky partnership would be terminated. And then the closure of Treasure Forest Elementary and Panda Path, an early learning center. And so those are all on the north side. And the meeting, like I said, is at 9016 Westview. So if you want to sign up, you need to sign up before 6 p.m. And really just to talk about equity and how we need to be thoughtful in these choices. And I know we're being presented with this being the only option, but I know there are other ways to reach these $35 million in cuts without disproportionately affecting vulnerable communities.
It seems to me like, you don't need $35 million in cuts. You need $35 million in raising funds if that's your shortfall. Which across we have to stop thinking from an austerity point of view, Diana. It's always we're shortfall $35 million. I don't know if you've listened to the show from the beginning. The question is why? Maybe you're incorrectly taxing. Maybe you're not getting the funds where they should come from, et cetera, et cetera. But we need to stop thinking in the mode of austerity and start thinking in the mode of providing what's needed. Now, Diana, is there an article that's all encompassing that you can email me to kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. Please email me something with the article that I can put along with this excerpt of this show that I'm going to put out there on this particular topic today.
Okay, sounds great. And I feel so strongly about defending our community, and parents feel strongly too, and the district did not expect that. But I don't accept the premise of their question, meaning that how do we make these cuts? I feel like you're right. We don't need to accept the fact that there's a $35 million shortfall. I think there's more to it, that we can work towards solutions for all of the families in Spring Branch.
Absolutely. Please send that email because I will go ahead and just sort of publicize it however I can as well. And for those that are listening to us right now, folks, please remember this. Diana just said that the school board was taken over by a MAGA crowd, and we know what the MAGA crowd stands for. And this is not trying to be offensive or anything of that nature. This is just trying to say your vote count, and staying home and not voting on these school board elections is a vote. Whether you vote in person or you vote without voting, it is a vote. And your non-vote is closing those schools. Your non-vote is closing the schools that Diana speaks about. And now a big effort has to be made to take care of business. Diana, anything else before we go on the subject?
No, but thank you so much for letting me share this information.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful rest of your day, Diane. Folks, that is why it is so important for us to engage. It's not only about engaging, it's not only about voting, it is also about acquiring the knowledge to know. Diana, it is clear that Diana is an involved citizen who understands what's about to happen and needs your support. Are you in Spring Branch? Are your relatives, friends, and neighbors going to these Spring Branch schools? Please go out there and be a part of it. Go out there and speak against it. Let those folks know that their particular jobs on those boards are on the line. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Extension number 2 to speak. I tell you what, the rest of that article, you guys get the gist of what the article is all about. You can go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter for all the subjects that we were supposed to talk about that we didn't. All the videos are there. The interview with Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm, you last saw on CNN 2 days ago, where he really got into Ted Cruz. when I saw that interview, I had to call him up and say, "Hey, man, I got to talk to you, brother, because I want my audience to hear what you have to say." That was a great takedown on Ted Cruz on CNN. All right, come on in, Augie.
Yeah, that thing about how the corporate greed works. I was thinking about this guy that I used to work at the BP plant in Texas City, and the labs there. They spent a lot of money on them, and I knew a guy who would go in there and repair their equipment. He got paid a lot of money, and we were talking one time. He says, "Yeah, I got paid $4,000 to go fix your equipment." But then he got curious, and he asked the guy who hired him how much money he made off his work. And the guy said, "Well, I made $15,000 just by calling you up and hiring you." This guy didn't do anything. He just hired this guy who knew how to do the work. And, and that's another thing. And the BP guys, like I told you once before, I was at a meeting, and the BP executive from England came over because they were going to shut down a unit and replace it. And then he was also talking about the pipeline that they had there. There was an explosion in the unit once before. It killed like 17 people. Mm-hmm. And usually the people who die are the contractors. And that's how I got called in there to work on the phone lines. And so he's asking the Texas City executives there, the plant manager, about this one pipeline that was going into it. How much money are we making? And when do you expect it to blow up? How much money would we make from this time to when it blew up? And then also, if it blew up, how much money would it be sued by? They didn't care if it killed people or not. All they cared about is how much money.
What it would cost. Yeah,
what it would cost. If they make more money than what the suits would bring, so go ahead. Let's use the pipeline until it blows. And so,
you see, Augie, and we can. It's morally wrong what they're doing, but that is a definition of capitalism as defined by Milton Friedman in its latest iteration. The truth of the matter is, it is a dereliction of duty if that person who asked that question didn't ask it. He had to maximize the profits for the corporations. And so that's why they don't care about polluting, right? Because they figure, let's determine what things are going to cost. If we pollute and get struck in the court, what percentage of our profits is that going to be? And worst case, Augie, because we have a false entity called a corporation with its own values, with its own being, a corporation can just go bankrupt and disappear. All the shareholders that ever constantly made profits from it, all the executives that got big bonuses and salaries from it, poof, they paid nothing off of the gains that they made from the injury that they caused. But it's the system. And when I ask people to think, when I ask people to understand, that's what I'm talking about, Augie, like you well know as well, sir. Give me a closer, Augie, before I go to Brian. I want to give Brian an extra minute today.
I also live in Spring Branch, too, so I know a little bit about that education system. And Abbott is cutting funding for public schools, but having money for charter schools. And then Chronicle, 2 years in a row, the charter school people started a school, but then on the first day of school, signs were on the doors telling employees, hope you can find a job, and parents hope you can find a school. But
I remember that. I remember that. Look, thank you, Augie. As usual, always great hearing from you, my brother. Let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yes. One of your callers yesterday said that Sheila Jackson Lee was instrumental in finding funds for the Metro Rail downtown.
Yes, she did.
I didn't find any evidence of that whatsoever. That's a $3.5 billion bond.
Yeah.
The city had to pay.
Well, I mean, that's $3.5 billion for the bond, but I mean, there's a whole lot of federal grants that came into the fold. So what you want to do is go ahead and look. And by the way, I didn't go ahead and research this, but I do remember during the times when this happened, Brian. But anyway, so the case of that the person who brought that information had good information. Any other thing you want to talk about?
Okay, and it's always a mega person that's running the show at the schools, right? It's always the bad guys, the mega, right?
No, not at all. No. Brian, you're a MAGA, Brian. You are MAGA, and you always call this show. Oh, you're not. I thought you told me once you were.
No, I've never said that.
Oh, okay. But you're a Trump supporter, right? You're a Trump supporter?
Or Trump. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So maybe I just transposed as Trump supporter being MAGA because most of the Trump supporters are in fact MAGA. But anyway, continue, Brian.
Okay. Yeah. You need to look up the term racist because if you lump everyone into a certain group without knowing them, you're a racist.
I agree with you 100%. I agree. Okay. Hey, sir, I agree with you 100%. Huh? Say that again?
Yeah. You called me a mega, right? Because I support Trump.
Well,
there's the answer.
I don't, but that's not a comparable argument. What you just said, my friend. That's not comparable at all. I called you MAGA because I made the assumption that as a Trump supporter you were MAGA. You corrected me, and I said, "Oh, I told you the reasons I said that." That is different than saying all MAGA people are wrong, or I mean, in fact, you know that I have a whole lot of MAGA supporters as well.
Okay,
you know that.
Okay.
You know that. You know that. Anyway, let's go ahead and close this baby out. Before I close out, let me just jump to my brother Jack to see if he has something to say in the studio. I know he's been busy keeping all these things going by him lonesome. Have anything to tell me, Jack?
Yeah, just a little description. Over the years, they've been, deregulating everything. They've been building this box that they're going to close on us. The lid is closing, but it's not sealed yet. And that's the chance we have. We have to make sure that box didn't get sealed into authoritarian government.
Man, okay. Jack, I love that, what you just said there. I mean, you would not imagine how much I love that. And let me tell you why I love that real quick with the little time that I have. You said the box is not sealed yet. And most people are acting as if the box is sealed. It's not sealed. I'm going to pick that up on our next show. Remind me to pick that up on our next show. That was a very important statement. Anyway, thank you, Jack. Thank you, callers. Thank you for the rest of the people. All of you who are listening, love you all. And I mean that from the depths of my heart. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.